So let's quick move forward to the next topic of this afternoon. So I will have more guests on stage. I will need one more chair next to me because we're going to talk about scaling up repair with data and business models. We will have remotely with us Agustin Garcia Pereira, who is Sharepair's database expert from National University of Ireland. We will have on this stage Justine de Rose from Cyrus and Dever Meersman from Maximal Impact Foundation. They are both consultants hired to develop a long-term plan to continue Sharepair digital infrastructure after project ends. Well, they will tell us everything about it. We will have again Yoko Dams from the Vito, the researcher that we have already had on stage, and also Alex Bunedière, researcher at the KUL, the Catholic University of Leuven. Come sit here. Let's change chairs. So he will share his research on new business models for repair. And again, come on, take my chair. I will be dancing on the side. I will be there, making sure that I make a sign every 5 minutes so you know how long you've been talking. Are you ready? So I don't know who's who anymore. So I trust you. Oh yeah, we start with the online speaker. Thank you, Lieve. Agustin, do you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, you are there. So you are opening this part of the session.
Okay, that's a great pleasure. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks for being here today and for the opportunity to present our work. My name is Agustin Garcia Pereira, and I am from the University of Galway in Ireland. And we are partners in the Sharepair project, and we've been developing some cool things that we are going to show you today. So maybe if we have the slides around.
Is it right? Is it the slide you're waiting for?
Yep. The next one. Perfect. Yeah, so let's start. There should be another slide next to that one. Yes, here. So one of the issues we've been solving in Sharepair project is the data silos issue. This happens in many areas, and the repair domain is not an exception. There's usually very different information systems that are not able to operate together, and in this way they cannot share the data, and the data remains sequestrated within those systems. As you can see, this picture is very descriptive of this situation. You could have 3D parts on one side, repair centers information on another, repairs data and repair guidelines in other databases that do not talk to each other. And this is an issue we have been addressing in the project. And to solve this, we have developed the Open Repair Data Platform that we've named this platform many times, and now we are going to see what it does, what it is. So the Open Repair Data Platform, it's basically a data infrastructure that consumes different sources of data, such as European databases and data coming from repair communities and services and cities, and also data coming from users of digital tools and platforms as well. The Open Repair Data Platform amalgamates all this data, it glues this data together, and it helps create digital support tools. These digital support tools help to analyze this data and design new digital tools that can help address the issues in the domain, such as, for example, repair tools, guideline tools, mapping tools, and it helps us as well analyze this data to upgrade these digital tools, learn from what we see in the data, get insights that can help us create better digital tools. So some of the other objectives of this platform is to analyze the data, to measure the impact of the repairs, how well we're doing, and to influence the policy, to have better policies. Policymakers can take a look at this data and see where we are doing well, where we can improve, what resources we need to create better repair experiences. And it's very important, the repair network around this, to support this infrastructure. Now we will see a bit more into detail what is this platform. So on the left-hand side, we have very different data sources, such as Repair Connect, the Open Repair Alliance data, external platforms such as My Manufactory, Thingiverse, iFixit. We have data about generators, and we also have data from the Open Repair Data Standard. That's a standard I will talk about briefly now. And all this data comes together to our platform. We process it and we transform this data in a way that makes sense and that we can extract insights from it. And this data then serves as a data source for other tools like dashboard and tools. The ORDP Explorer is another that I'll show you some screenshots afterwards. And we also provide a GraphQL API. This means it's a tool that allows us to query this data for any purpose. If we can transition so this transformation of data, we call it in the more technical domain, we call it ELT pipeline. It means extract, load, and transform. And we are able to do this using the Open Repair Data Standard that I mentioned before. The Open Repair Data Standard acts as the glue, if we can go to the next one, as the glue that we use to combine all these data sets, right? And that's why our data can be amalgamated and shared in a standardized format. I'll show you some examples of these tools that we have created based on the ORDP. So from the dashboard, next one, yeah, there it is. So we have here some of the examples of the dashboard, some nice charts that allows us to see different aspects of the repairs being performed in Europe, but also outside Europe. We also have the mapping tool where we can find repair centers, we can find repair cafes, etc., using filters and narrowing down the options by geographical area. And then we have the ORDP Explorer. This is a tool that allows repairers to find resources, 3D model resources quickly, getting information from several platforms at the same time. And then we have the GraphQL API. This is a more technical one that allows us to query all this information in a structured way and querying the data that we're interested in without the need to download a huge amount of data that we don't really need. So it's a very dynamic tool that developers and general public can use as well to extract the data that they need. So this was a brief overview of the platform. I'm open to questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Agustin. So we kept on playing musical chairs so I could come here, but of course you will be joining us at the end of this session. So now I'm turning to Justine and Dever, because you are next to tell us more about data, I suppose.
Amongst others. I think, are the slides up again? Or?
They will be coming.
Perfect. I'll quickly also introduce myself. My name is Justine. I work for Cirrus. Cirrus is a consulting company from Ghent, and we've been working with the Sharepair partners to think about the long-term business strategy for what's happening after when the project ends and how we can continue. I will set the scene a little bit, and then I'll leave the word to Davor, who has been doing a lot of research and who will discuss also the strategy of how we see this continuing after the project. But maybe first, as I said, let's set the scene a little bit, and maybe for some of you, this will not be new, or you are aware with the challenges that repair can bring, but I think it's good before we dive into the strategy to just have an overview of the domain and what we are actually facing when we are looking to a long-term business plan. So I think inherently when you look at repair, it's been mentioned this morning multiple times as well, we're looking at low margin business models. The cost of labor is high, definitely in Belgium. It's often difficult to find the right parts to be able to repair. We find that there are opposing powers when we are looking at manufacturers, for example. They might not always have the right incentives to be able to repair, or repair might also be an expensive business model for them. On top of that, we are talking about fast change and very innovative technology in electronics, which makes that it's difficult for the repair movement to keep up with all the changes that are happening. And there are negative incentives. For me as a consumer, and you might find it as well, sometimes it's simply easier to replace rather than to repair. Nothing new there, but I think that setting that scene is not unimportant, because we can still see that repair is still definitely a success story. I mean, look at all the people here today, the people calling in, and the movement that it has created. And all the plans that are still on the table for the future. And definitely in the past years, we've really seen that there are, just like there are to repair, there are two sides to repair. And on the one hand, it's about getting stuff done, and let's make sure that we can get ahead. But on the other hand, it's also about propagating societal change and making sure that not only we want to repair, but there's also the right environment and culture for repair, and policy making as well, something that was discussed this morning. A bit further on the domain analysis, but I think also, I don't know if the report will be shared with everyone, but you can read further into it. It will definitely give some more insights. But in terms of the value of repair, we've seen and discussed this morning as well, a lot has been done by the community in terms of legislation, policy advocacy, and just in general increasing awareness when it comes to repair. We've also seen a lot of innovation. Manufacturers are being pushed towards making devices that are more repairable, that are more durable, more sustainable. And when it comes to funding, a very important aspect when looking at the business model, we do also see that there are different types of funding that we need to look into. There is public funding, which is very important to get this program going, but we also can see that there are private donations, crowdfunding platforms that are being set up by the community, and there's also definitely revenue from product sales and repair services that can be tapped into when we are looking at the business model. We can see lots of similarities between the maker movement and the repair movement in terms of the creativity that is being used, the empowerment that we see towards the community, and the feel for sustainability. And that leading all up to the fact that we see, especially in the past years, really a growth in that repair community, having a more global impact, and enabling us to look further into the future and to see how we can get things going after this project. So it's strong potential for more, where Davor will step into. Do you have a microphone?
You should have one normally. Probably you're sitting on it.
Okay, there you go.
And
It still
allows
works,
me to
yeah.
tell me that it's been 5 minutes already, so you know.
What was that? We've had 5 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
You can go on.
So now for the rest of the hour. No, just kidding. So yes, thanks also, Justine. So it was a difficult or challenging exercise, I think, to develop a sustainability plan that can, stand on its own, that can scale up without having to scale up the, all commitments and so forth with it, because the value of the repair movement is mainly, you could say, not solely, but mainly in the achievements in terms of advocacy and things coming out of that, and the community building, awareness building, and so forth. So really the societal aspects, let's say, the change aspects. But then there's also kind of the activity of repairing, which suffers from issues in terms of finding sustainability. And the pertinent issue there is that when projects like Sharepair happen and things like that get developed, if you don't find a sustainable model for the latter, it actually eats into the former. So it can, without due care, it can turn into a negative in the long run. So, therefore, I think there's a number of elements, principles that should be looked at just in general, I think, where the idea of nested value propositions, where repair is in many ways part of something else. It, in terms of advocacy legislation, I think it really stands on its own and it shines. But as an activity, it's kind of part of making something. It's also part of waste management. It's part of different kinds of activities depending on the stakeholder. So there is an economic kind of alleviation of concerns to be found by just being part of other activities economically. There's also, I think, something that just engaging with the movement over the past months that is maybe not done enough is kind of a self-examination of the product categories that are considered as part of the repair movement, because it's kind of a historical effect where it's mainly electronic appliances. But then the question of, for example, what was different when it started, which is largely speaking the WEEE directive, and then kind of everything that goes with that, which is, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. In any case, a long time ago. Meanwhile, there's a huge amount of digital transformation. There's, I think, a connectivity we haven't seen, also thanks to the pandemic, that simply wasn't part of the picture back then. And also we have, electric devices driving through the streets, which are massive, have huge amounts of materials, and, really large costs. Therefore, also, what's a small margin can be a big amount, right? So it merits looking at those domains as well. So that's kind of some of the exercise we've done on the scaling in, looked at EVs. Also, I think in construction, there's quite a lot to be done, although, the jury's still out whether that, is to be incorporated or just kind of interfaced. And then there is, let's say, on a European continental scale, quite a big movement going on now also from the Commission in terms of, on one hand, the reshoring of kind of operator-led industrial models thanks to robotization, automatization. So that's a real opportunity. And the other one is on, the next generation of solar panels, which is coming up, perovskite, where industrial consortia are now looking at doing that completely where the IP is generated anyway, which is largely Europe and the US. Not to kind of fall into the same pitfall where, there is an external partner. We are quite heavily dependent on already for materials, also controlling 94% of the domain. So there is an opportunity there, I think, in terms of the end-of-life panels that are currently there, kind of repurposing them, repairing them, again, large electronic devices. yes, I think we can go into the next one. I apologize, but I think it's important as a context. So the other one is kind of the idea of scaling out, which is, you know, really partnering up with other cities, with other kind of flanking domains and so forth. So in that sense, we've worked on the notion of urban resource centers. It's something that's in pretty much every city's kind of strategy long term, just like urban data platforms and, you know, used to be data ecosystems, IoT and so forth. But when you talk to cities, not a lot of cities have a handle on it or are really doing it. There's an awareness it should be done, getting a grip on the material streams in a city. But what is it ultimately? Like, you know, how will it be operationalized? What is part of it? What isn't? So there we are looking at establishing a really informal kind of work leading up to the Smart Cities Expo in Barcelona in November, where without kind of, you know, shining a big spotlight on it now, cities can just come together and discuss, okay, what is it in terms, you know, from the data standpoint, what information streams should be part of it, which not, and what do I already have as a first step to kind of doing it in concert, because it's a universal need that cities have to do this, so it makes all the sense in the world to do it kind of cooperatively from the get-go. Then the scaling up part, which is, I think, the real tough cookie. So there's a separation of concerns I think we need to apply. So one is the data models. So you often see with projects, whether they're European or national, if insufficient care and diligence is applied to what you do with the data models, and especially how you will evolve them to keep corresponding to reality, at the end of the project, they will, you know, become stale after about a year, and, you know, people will stop using them a little while later. So it's quite crucial to kind of find a good home for them, whether that's standalone or not. And there we are, well, progressing with the Fireware Foundation, which is Europe's largest open source foundation, to incorporate them in the smart data models, with the big advantage of hundreds of cities already doing these, and of course the Ceph building block context broker already using these. So basically all the levels of government are converging around these data models. So Repair will then kind of already on that level be part of a larger ecosystem. Then in terms of like which is, you know, this is the data models, then there's the data itself. There will be data and generated, it's more structured, there'll be hopefully lots more of it, especially after Yoko gets her thing off the ground and so forth. And there, you know, there's of course these large projects regarding data spaces. So we've been quite active in now embedding the results and you know, key parts of the consortium and so forth, kind of wayfinding how Repair as you know, entities, but also as the data itself can be part of, you know, various data spaces. Mainly, currently it's looking like manufacturing, obviously, is one. There's, you know, alignment with energy, specifically around the battery part and so forth. And there we have a small call to action, I think, still in the slides at the end. And then well, so just, and then the final part is the software, the platform. So that also, the cost needs to somehow be carried forward. So there is an option to work with an open source solutions incubator by AWS, where they elicit solutions developed by cities and then expose those open source solutions to you know, the thousands of cities they work with, which is, you know, something the consortium is currently looking at and mulling over. Yes, sorry. Is that, yeah, that's you again?
Yeah, just in terms of setting the scene for the future, it's been discussed also by by Matthias in the from Interreg, and I think what we can see today is that the platform and the incentive is there to bring, on the one hand, academia together to the citizens to reduce the cost for repair, look at the industry and design, make a design that is made for repairability, spare part availability, you name it, and also look at public authorities. But when there, right there in the middle, where we are, so to say, with the data platform. We might be looking at in the upcoming months some call to actions, so we can really tap into that and further investigate what the possibilities are. I think the first one that we want to mention was one that we just had the session about earlier. There will be a short-term Northwestern Europe call for Interreg, sorry. And yeah, we want to look into that further, and we are also, this is really a call to action towards cities who might be interested in applying for funding together. So definitely, if anybody would be interested to join that collaboration, then we can be contacted on my email address, but also the partners within the consortium. And then maybe less short term.
Yes, so essentially this is the part on the Urban Resource Center's data modeling exercise. So there the Firewear Foundation will kind of facilitate a program from now until November, the Smart Cities Expo Barcelona, to help cities find agreement on what is an urban resource center. The idea here is that it's really for cities by cities, and that the governance is kind of there. And then it's up to the cities to see after Barcelona how to kind of take it forward from there. And we have some time, of course, to figure it out by then. I think it's worthwhile to engage in this exercise. If you have an interest to participate in this, feel free to reach out to either Justine or me, and we will, and Lina, of course, sorry, Lina. And let's get this off the ground. The idea is that we have something to show, kind of an initial thing, and then say hello world in Barcelona, and there, of course, there's even more cities, and just, based on what there is, say, okay, what do you think? Is this a good basis? And then, see where it goes. And then, yes, there is a proposal in the manufacturing data space in the works, where I've managed to put the repair agenda in as a use case, likely around the repair of EVs. I personally believe it's something the movement should really look at closely, simply because of some of the use cases. They're quite cool. And there it's a combination of the manufacturing data space with the repair data space. So I think a really cool case. And obviously it's the Horizon Europe call, so it's TRL 2 to 3, quite low, so researchy. But the impact of it could be huge, because one of the projects that will likely participate and is already funded by the German national government has to do with personal mobility pods, which are electric, that connect rural environments to urban environments. And then, but the pods are kind of, it's a bit weird. I don't know even, like, I still have to exercise how to explain. It's like a truck bus for cars. So and it's being funded, it's gonna exist, so it's not science fiction, but essentially you have your own kind of pod. It's like less than half a ton in weight, electric. You go to this place, you hook up to the truck, that's a hydrogen truck. It charges the pods as it goes to the city, and from there you do the last mile, and it will be executed in Paderborn. I really love the case. It's being funded quite well by the federal government. And when I mentioned kind of like, shouldn't it be open source, these pods and this and that, so there might be appetite to do that. And I think it's really could be one of those moments where you're able to get ahead of it, right? And not be dependent on kind of, put the power back in the hands of the people now that cars have simplified so much. But what we're looking for specifically here, I think, is also shaping the requirements. Obviously, it's a very kind of physical type of use case, but to me, it sounded like it might be something as a regional mobility solution. So, cities looking at it and, how does it work? How would it work with me? In Flanders, there's a lot of work on, mobility data spaces. How would they gel with kind of these type of things, and is that an aspect to be learned? So I thought it would be interesting, therefore the invitation. Please do get in touch. It's very much in movement. I'm out of 2 calls, one 10 p.m. last night, one this morning on this proposal, so I'll share the info as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you, Justine, for being with us. And now I turn to, we can, of course. It's all very exciting. So let's get to you, Yoko, with your insights now.
Yeah, thank you. Because I have an idea, a case for which I think that our repair data can bring value for organizations within the repair ecosystem. And I will bring you back to the repair index, but as Rosalie has described this intensively this morning, I don't think I have to overdo that. It is a repair score that is put on every device, is put in the retail, at the retailer, and it is implemented the 1st of January in 2021. So we've had more than 1 year now after this implementation, and some evaluations came. And we can roughly conclude from these evaluations that it is highly relevant because it is a really effective policy measure. It is capable of really changing people's behavior, so that's a good thing. But on the other hand, the scores are misleading high. The very low scores, you don't see them put on the devices, and there's also a lack of verification. So that's why we thought maybe we should establish a repair observatory, a sort of market surveillance mechanism that checks whether the scores that are calculated by the manufacturers is fair or not. So this is called the Repair Observatory. It's a bit of the same picture Agustin showed, but it's on top of the ORDP data. We add other repair data to that because the technology allows to do that. It's perfectly fit for that. So we are now exploring together with the retailer Fnac van den Borre how we can join forces and combine those two data, repair data, and in the end start from data and produce insights with those data. But many more owners of repair data can follow. Think about manufacturers, professional repairers, reuse shops, consumer organizations. They all are achieving repair, and so maybe logging the repairs too, and so they can enter this initiative and bring value there. Because if we bring together the data, we come with big data, and then we can apply artificial intelligence towards that. I have, with a thesis student at KU Leuven, also reached a proof of concept, and in the end it was really interesting to apply artificial intelligence on this data, and it could lead to a much more effective repair process. So the cost for diagnosis and so on, it can all be reduced because of the artificial intelligence applied upon the data. And finally, we can produce insights on the one hand for each and every data supplier. We apply our calculations and algorithms towards them and return insights for their data. And on the other hand, as I said this morning, I'm using the data a lot for assisting policymakers, for monitoring circular economy in Europe and so on. So also for there, this is highly relevant, so we can produce insights for all of these policymakers, either local level or a regional level, national level, and so on and so forth. So this is the idea we have, and we are still looking for funding and to further develop this initiative.
And you're finished.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Yoko. So, may I ask one of you to leave a seat so Alex can join us again on stage? Thank you. For the last part of this session, Alex Benedier. So now we are listening to you.
Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Benedier, and I'm from KU Leuven. And I'm going to focus on business models, scaling up business models, and trying to reduce the cost of repair. So, my research focuses on, like this, the equation up there. If repair cost, if the willingness to pay is larger than the repair cost, that means that people are willing to pay the repair cost and the spare part is available, they'll probably go out with, carry out the repair. However, typically, either the willingness to pay is too low, the repair cost is too high, or some combination of that, or the spare part is not available. So as such, my main focus is trying to figure out what are the parts that make up the repair cost, and how can those individual parts be reduced or adapted somehow so that the overall repair cost can be reduced, as well as also understanding the willingness to pay for the repair, because that's the one part of the equation. So I'm not going to go through in detail this flow chart, but it describes all the different factors that influence the price of repair, and how some factors for willingness to pay, and it just gives a starting point for the research. So the first main business model I'll talk about is personalization of repair. And guidance. There's a difference in the picture. But anyway, this idea is about whether if you're in a situation and you have a washing machine, for example, to be repaired, and you and Roger, this hypothetical person, live in the same location, you have the same problem with the repair, everything between the two of you is the same. It's the same problem with the washing machine, etc. Then you'd expect that you would pay the same amount for the repair. But if, for example, you are willing to maybe do remote diagnosis, maybe you're willing to do remote repair, maybe you're willing to bring the device to the repairer, maybe you're willing to assist in the repair somehow, maybe you have a low priority of repair, etc. There's many variables like this. In this current situation, there's no way for you to express that interest and thus have the repair price reduced. This is because if you look at this, this quote up the top here, this shows the only variance that you have in a repair price, and you'll see it's simple, complex, more complex repair, but it doesn't take into account any of the user's desires if they're willing to take part in the repair, or the distance from the repair. There's a fixed cost for logistics. So this idea is basically to create this dashboard that allows the user to fill in different parameters which allow them to adjust the repair cost. And the idea is that if you, for example, imagine you're back in this situation of this washing machine, and you go through the standard repair cost and you see, the cost is too high. I'm not willing to pay that amount. Traditionally, you might just not repair and buy a new one. But the idea is that with this kind of dashboard, this kind of option, you could say, okay, well, the repair price is too high. Maybe I can say, it's not such a high priority in this case. Then maybe the cost is reduced. Maybe I'm willing to assist the repairer. Now the cost is reduced even further. Maybe I'm willing to use a refurbished part if available, and this reduces the cost further. And through this breaking down of each parameter, you could customize the cost to a point where the willingness to pay is equal to the cost of repair, or lower than the willingness to pay, and then the repair will be carried out. So that's this one idea, and it also just describes the repair cost equation, which is just remote assist plus logistics plus diagnostic plus repair plus spare part plus admin plus VAT plus profit. That is the overall repair cost. And so each of those attributes I'm looking into, and each of them is, there's subgroups for each of them. And I submitted a conference paper for this, for those who are interested. And I ran through 7 hypothetical scenarios where I posed different options of these to try to see in which cases the price would be higher, lower, or equal to the current option. And in my example, 7 of the options had a lower repair cost as opposed to the traditional repair, and with 2 being higher. And it's an interesting read for those who are interested. Next is spare parts as a business model. So this is where I'm trying to show that businesses can sell spare parts as part of a business model. So traditionally, it's not part of the business model, But I'm not going to go through it fully, but if you follow the traditional model, once the washing machine breaks, the customer might go and just buy a replacement. But in this example, maybe the manufacturer can make the similar amount of profit by selling a repair part, and having the customer repair the washing machine as opposed to buying a new washing machine. This is because just the logistics are much lower of selling a single part. There are a lot less costs in selling one part than selling a whole device. It's an option. I'm looking into this. There are some appliances where this may be more applicable than others. Next is hobby repair. So this, if you look at the current repair landscape, this is typically what you'll see. You'll have professional repair with a high repair cost and a short repair time, and you'll have self-repair and repair cafe, both being free, but each with their own problems. And when I saw this, I saw this gap, right? This, there should be, yeah, there. There's a gap which I identified, and I wanted to try to address this gap. And so I addressed it through this idea called hobby repair, which is where I try to leverage the fact that repair can be fun and interesting like a hobby. This is why people volunteer for repair cafes, for example. But rather try to do it in such a way that they can earn a small amount of money repairing at home, and then open up this whole new market of people who could be potential repairers, because the number of repairers that are available is one of the limitations in the current repair infrastructure. So by leveraging people who have skills, for example, retired people who might be at home, who have time, who have skills, who have a workshop, if you can leverage that, those people, have them earn a little bit of money, and then take the burden off some of the other repairers, in general, you could increase the number of repair. And within that, I've got several different ways of getting devices, including buying and selling devices, or partnering with thrift stores, or doing repair as a service, but I'm not going to go into all that today. And yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, you can let me know. And that's the focus of my PhD. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alex, for this brilliant idea. Well, I'm afraid we are running a little bit behind our schedule, so I will only take one question in this Q&A session. Otherwise, we might really get behind. So does anyone in the audience have a very good question they would like to ask us? Don't be shied off by my very good. We have one question there.
Thank you. I had a question for Yoko, and I'm interested in a bit more information about your thoughts of how the different data sets from professional repairers and retailers and others can be combined. And I wonder if you had any opinion on the work of Swiss retailer that recently started publishing data about the percentage of products, the rate of products that require in-warranty repair and the length of warranty repairs to help consumers make a better informed decision. Is this something that you're considering?
Yeah, interesting initiative. It will be hard to combine all these data because some of the data are NDA protected. I know it will be a challenge, but last year we've done a few workshops with all potential repair data suppliers, and in the end there was a lot of problems and challenges raised, and there is a lot that need to discuss further. That's absolutely true. But in the end, all partners present there on these workshops, they were willing to start this process, and they are in fact all open for it. And they, each of these participants saw the added value they could get out of this pooling of data and artificial intelligence applied upon that. So that's what I'm positive about this, but indeed it's not for tomorrow. It's still a huge development need, of course, so it's mainly looking for new research funding and need to further develop it it's in that stage only.
Thank you. I'd say we have time only for one more.
We have one online question.
Oh, yes, sure.
So when will Europe require manufacturers to provide expected functional lifetime statements and offer warranty accordingly?
Who wants to... Did you get the question?
What was the question?
Can you repeat it slower?
Sure. Okay. When will Europe require manufacturers to provide expected functional lifetime statements and offer warranty accordingly?
When? We don't
For
know.
example, number of used cycles, I don't know.
Use cycles, yes. Yeah, when I think everybody would like to know that answer.
That's the question. That's,
It's a huge question we would like to have an answer to.
yeah.
Well, we leave this big question in the air, and hopefully we might come close to an answer before the end of the day, but I'm afraid we won't have a precise date for that question. I'm sorry, and thank you for asking us that. Thanks a lot for being here on stage with us. I'm quite sure that you will have people coming to you and talking about your ideas and projects during the break later on, but thanks for coming, and let's move on to the next topic.